All right, everyone, we've got something a little bit different today for the Art of Simple Golf. We have the pleasure of having Scott Fawcett of Decade Golf. This guy is a legend when it comes to strategy, the correct way to
Nice.
play. And even though the best players in the world use it, you can use it too. And the way we're going to do it today is we've got the pleasure of seeing just how the Ryder Cup players are going to do it this well, in a couple of weeks, really, as we're recording this, Scott. So thanks for being with us. And we're really looking forward to seeing what we can learn from Beth Page and Decade Golf Formula, basically.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. This should be interesting. I'd like to start with a few points about match play because people think that in match play you need to play super aggressive in order to, make more birdies. And you can take on maybe a little bit more aggression in certain spots just because we're not as worried about doubles and triples. But on average, if you're just trying to get a better look at birdie, so you're playing a little bit more aggressive with your approach shots, or I'm not worried about the comeback putt, you're not optimizing certain things. And especially on that putting, if your opponent's in there close and you think, well, I don't want to leave this 18-footer short, so you hit it a little bit harder. What you've accomplished is just making the hole a lot smaller. You still have to have the combination of line and speed correct. And so it's a really strange thing to wrap your head around.
Does that apply to the full shots as well? Like, we all make the mistake of being more aggressive. We're one or two behind. We think got to get more aggressive. Does that screw people up off the tee? Going for pins, stuff like that.
Going for pins, yes. If you've got a tuck pin, so it's kind of, again, it's hard to wrap your head around, but while firing at more tucked pins might result in a slightly shorter birdie putt on average, because you'll hit fewer greens in regulation, you'll have significantly fewer birdie putts. And so you actually don't make more birdies by firing directly at pins. It feels self-serving sometimes by saying if you're choosing proper decade targets, you're going to optimize your birdie rate. But what we're really doing is trying to minimize our bogey rate. We don't want to just be giving holes away. And so we did take a little bit more. And this is, when I was first creating Decade to give myself a little leeway for making this mistake. But I did say, well, buddy, it looks pretty tight up there. We better get more aggressive on this shot and really try to hit it close. And he hit, just fanned it a little bit, landed in the lip of the front bunker and kicked back down to the bunker. It's the exact shot, actually, that if we'd chosen the proper target slightly long and left of the pin, that shot that he hit, actually, he would have stuck.
Finished tight. Yeah.
Yeah. But then more importantly, once we got up there, the guy was actually about 12 feet, which is still a nice look at birdie. But unless you're inside 8 feet on the PGA Tours where they're 50-50, unless you're inside 8 feet, we really don't know what you're going to wind up with as a score on any given hole. We can start to get a general idea, but avoiding bogey in that situation, say Will gets down in there and hits a bunker shot out to 15 feet. Now the guy's only got a two-putt it for the win.
See, what's extraordinary that jumps out to me, everyone, regular golfers, they're always thinking it's only the best in the world who are trying to, how do they make so many birdies? And it's boring for them to hear, just try and play par golf or bogey golf isn't that bad. They hear that, but it doesn't really register because they also think, one, it doesn't apply to me. And two, the best in the world are going for pins. They're playing attacking golf. That's how they get low scores. But you're very clearly saying that is not the case, right?
It's just not the case. I mean, when you get around on the PGA Tour where the guy makes 6 or 7 birdies, almost every single time he birdied all of the par 5s and he birdied a shorter par 4. So like there's 3 to 5 birdies right there. And then they just happen to make an extra birdie or two with a 7-iron or a 6-iron or whatever. It's rarely they just went wheels off and made a ton of birdies with 6 and 7-irons. They birdied the holes you're supposed to, and then they didn't give them back with silly bogeys.
They're not trying to force anything.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm going to play in the U.S. Mid-Am this week, and I drive the ball really well, and my irons are not very good. I'm going to make birdies on the par 5s and with short irons. If I can just somehow skank 6 and 7-irons onto the green somewhere between 20 and 40 feet and two-putt those a bunch, I've got a chance. But if I start trying to, I fade every shot. If I start trying to draw 6-irons to back left pins to get a better look at birdies, that's just a surefire way for me to double cross it into the right bunker or smother it into the left rough. And that's just not going to work out. Great golf is accomplished by making fewer bogeys, not by making more birdies, especially at what sounds like the level of your player is. And that might not even, your followers, and that might even mean making more bogeys instead of doubles or triples. Sometimes it's not that hard to make bogey.
I think the challenge that people have, and let's start going through a couple of the holes. But people don't just play golf for the score. I guess it's not, especially recreational golfers. They play golf for the enjoyment of the big shot, the good shot, the enjoyable shot. And that sort of emotion often takes over, I think, of trying to play not necessarily the hero shot, but they want to go for the pin. They want to hit it close. And I try and get through to people. And what Decade and you really do clearly show is that people will enjoy golf more when they don't try and do too much, when they just try and keep it more simple and accept their limitations, because they will enjoy it more, right?
But implicit in your statement there of hitting it close implies that just because you're not aiming at the flag doesn't mean you won't hit it close.
Interesting. Okay.
We all want to take, like, I've got a guy that said this to me one time. We all want to take agency over the outcome. So, like, we want to be able to say, like, I did that on purpose. And what was funny is back in the 2020 US Open, Zalatoris hit a hole-in-one, and Sean Martin, the staff writer of the PGA Tour, said, Will Zalatoris just hit a hole-in-one, and the only thing Scott Fawcett will want to say is that he wasn't aiming at the flag. And I knew because of where the pin was and everything like that. And I just replied, I was like, well, he wasn't. And so I texted Will, I'm like, what was your target? He said 7 yards right of the flag. So I just screenshot the text. And I'm like, he wasn't. He still got to write down a 1, but it was not what he was aiming at. And this is what's hard, especially the better you get, most of your good shots to great shots were not where you were aiming. And it's like watching the announcers, where wherever the ball winds up, it's like the announcers think that's where he was aiming it. So when a player winds up sticking it on a left pin with a lake left, what an aggressive shot. Well, if you think that's what he did on purpose, then you also have to think when he hit it on the water 6 holes earlier, he was trying to do that on purpose. We have this shotgun shot pattern, and that's what we're technically effectively managing around the golf course. And, like you say, talking about just hopping right into it, you can still see my screen here, number 1 at Bethpage.
Yeah, we're there.
This is a perfect example. So here, this whole dog leg's pretty hard to the right. We've got this, what this triangle is 65 yards wide, 300 yards from the tee box. This is very indicative of what a PGA Tour caliber player's tee shot pattern will look like.
And so dispersion. So how many yards are we looking at in this sort of chart? How many yards dispersion left to right are we?
This is 65 yards across, and it's 300 yards from the tee.
Wow.
So when a player,
even the best in the world have 65 yards dispersion.
More than that. I mean, this is 85-ish% of their shots. They still have outlier shots,
of course,
that won't even hit this.
But so before we proceed, where would a 15 handicapper be?
Well, it'd be about 90 yards wide and about 60 yards shorter.
Wow. Well, so that even with that dispersion, I don't think people realize what that looks like and choose not to accept that. Right?
Again, that's a great point of saying choose not to accept it. Choosing to accept it is what will help you not turn those average rounds into bad rounds, for sure. Mm-hmm. But so let's say we're watching this on TV and some guy lands it right here and it rolls out, into this zone. Oh my God, what an aggressive shot cutting that corner off. That's not what he was trying to do in this scenario, where this is our target. Because if it was, we would just take the same 65-yard wide shot pattern and shift it further right, which then means the right side of a shot pattern would be dead in these trees. So just because of where a shot went does not mean that's where they were actually aiming it.
And especially off the first tee of the Ryder Cup, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be harder to execute the free-flowing, perfect shot exactly where you want. It's trying to mitigate damage. Like the last thing any of them want to do, I should imagine, is smash it into the trees on the right. That's the last thing anyone wants to do off the first tee.
Well, and to that point, most great drivers of the golf ball in the PGA Tour play a fade. And I used to think that's because they're like kind of holding on to it and like just that results in a cut. The modern driver, the further the center of mass is off the shaft, the harder that club is to draw. Mm-hmm. And so this is actually a pretty inviting tee shot for most guys out there because they're going to be able to just step up, start their, hammer a fade right down the right rough line.
Gotcha.
And it'll be a very comfortable tee shot. But Bryson, obviously the second player I worked with after Zalatoris, he draws his driver exclusively. So this is going to be an uncomfortable tee shot for Bryson. So where back in 2022, when he drove the first green and made eagle right out of the blocks, That's not going to happen for him on this hole. This is going to be an awkward tee shot for him, and I would definitely be looking for him if the course is playing fast. I would look for him to hit something more to the corner because anywhere he lands driver is just
He'll hit like a long iron or a 3-wood perhaps.
most likely.
Yeah.
The hole's not very long in the first place at 430. He's going to need something. Again, that's assuming the course is playing fast. If it's playing soft, this will be a great hole for him because he'll be able to take a further right line than everyone. And technically, if it's playing soft, he's got a huge fairway because the ball won't roll out.
So he can cut the corner and smash it a bit.
This fairway is only about 20 yards wide. Well, he's not coming in from this direction. He's going to be coming in, cutting the corner off. So this fairway for him is actually huge because he's going to have, basically like hitting a wedge, again, assuming it's playing soft or if it's playing soft.
Gotcha.
It'll be a completely different tee shot for a guy like Bryson. But this will be a very comfortable tee shot for most guys out there because of the way it dog legs to the right.
Gotcha. Okay.
This hole, at only 390, there's no reason, again, a Bryson can try to draw it down here, but most guys, the best drivers of the golf ball to a tee, all of them shape the driver one way exclusively. Rory is kind of a rare exception, but there's also unicorns that can do things that the rest of us can't. Steph Curry can shoot threes from half court. I can't do that. So just because Rory does something, that's one of the main things. Well, if Rory does it, I'm like, and
yeah. What's funny is like I when I play with people all the time, it amazes me. Their level of golf, it doesn't match their belly. Like when you eat too much food, your eyes is bigger than your belly. I see it all the time on the golf course. People trying to hit certain draw shots or punch shots or trying to hit it high. It's like, hold on, just try and make solid contact first, without adding all these different variables.
This is a debate I get into constantly with instructors about like the 9-box drill, hitting the low, medium, high shots with fade, straight, and draw, like hitting every single shape and height. I think Tiger did it. He's a unicorn with his irons. So yes, he could do that with his irons, but he also was terrible at it with his driver. He tried back in the late 90s, early 2000s when he drove the ball in crazy. He was hitting 70% of his fairways with power that was unrivaled at the time on tour. The guys that played with him back then have told me he basically cut the driver exclusively. I do believe once he started trying to work it both ways and zero out his swing path, he never drove the ball as well as he did when he was just hammering that cut every time.
Well, he always he struggled for several years. Then it would be left and right. You wouldn't quite know where it would go.
Exactly. And so, yes, it's easier to do with irons because you can move ball position, which helps you move your path. The further, since it sounds like your audience is more of a mid handicap player, the further back in your stance you play the ball, the more it shifts path to the right. The further up in your stance, the further path shifts left, which is another reason why fading the driver is so much easier. The club wants to do that with the ball further up in your stance and hitting up on it. The path is wanting to be exiting to the left, which is going to produce fade spin.
Do you ever try and hit different shot shapes? Like, do you ever on the range try and mess with it?
No, not at all. I mean, I think that I've maybe even drank my own Kool-Aid a little too much here. I used to at least be able to hit like a draw with a 6-iron or a 5-iron. I actually just can't do it anymore. And to your point of being a fairly good player, I missed getting Champions Tour status at final stage last year by 3 shots. I just qualified for the U.S. Mid-Am in what was only my 15th round of golf in 9 months.
It's impressive.
And that's just because I know which way the ball is shaping off the tee. I lag putt it well from 20 to 40 feet, and the rest of my game is really pretty pedestrian at best. And so knowing,
I mean this in as much kindness, it's boring, right? You're just trying, what you can do, and you're just trying to do that well. People think, well, that sounds boring, but it makes it more enjoyable because you can rely on it more. You have more consistency. You know what to expect a little bit more, right?
Well, and that's exactly what Zalatoris told me one day when he was like 15 years old. We were out playing. I was just a couple of years removed from having Korn Ferry status, and so again playing professional golf. And I just remembered it was the other day because we're walking up onto the 15th tee, and it's a pretty hard dog leg left, and I just grabbed my iron and hit the fade out there. He's like, "It's so boring watching you play. I just know exactly what you're going to do on every single shot." And I'm like, it's kind of this paradox of choice for a guy like Will, who's obviously one of the greatest ball strikers to ever walk the planet, especially with his irons. And I'm like, you can hit all these shots, but they're not necessarily necessary,
Hmm.
especially unless you're trying to get to like the top 10 in the world. They're definitely not necessary. But you'll find just a ton of guys who play on tour and make a really good living that just do hit the same shot over and over and over again. I mean, it's really not necessary. Personally, I have a driver that I fade and I have a mini driver that I draw. The reason I can draw a mini driver, first of all, the head is smaller, so that center of
The
mass is
center of mass,
closer
yeah.
to the shaft, and then it's got more loft, so I can play it more, I don't play it in the middle of my stance, but I can play it more like where I would play like a 6 iron. And so
Hmm.
that's at least neutralizing the path to where it's not as far to the left as it would be if it was further up in my stance. So I do believe having two clubs that can go the opposite direction, but I'm working it both ways without really changing my swing. If you think about trying to work the driver both ways, and because of a lack of loft on the club, I have to shift my path. I can't just move the ball back in my stance. There's not enough loft to do that. I can't just move my path from 3 or 4 out to in to 3 to 4 in to out. Like that's a big shift
I
in
mean,
path.
I actually, I laugh and swear at the same time when it happens. But there's times where I try and hit a draw with my driver, and I totally screw it up. I'll like hit so far behind the ball, like kind of drop kick it because I'm trying to get my path so much. I'm overdoing everything because it doesn't feel comfortable for one thing, and then I'm there. Oh, why did that happen? It's like, why do you think, you idiot? Like
But not to
it's bad.
mention, not to mention, and this is something that Scheffler said at the Masters a couple years ago. They said, "Why don't you hit driver on 10?" And he's like, "Well, my driver's set up for a fade, so I've got it optimized at making up numbers here: 14-degree launch, 2,200 RPM of spin. If I try to draw that club, it's by definition going to come off with less spin. It's going to be a knuckleball that could kind of go anywhere, especially at 180-mile-an-hour ball speed."
Yeah.
So the driver's the only. It's not like you stand in a fitting in indoors and do the 9 box drill with a driver. You're just hitting your stock shot. So even if it's a draw, this is what frustrates me with Rory. Rory talks about like I'm gonna switch to playing a fade exclusively. But you know what? They're just spinny. I'm like, well, you took your driver that's fit for a draw and you
Yeah.
just tried to fade it. So yeah, it's a spinny mess. He needs
Hmm.
to get a driver built for a fade and hit these flat hammered fades. And I do believe he would. Keith Mitchell, who's the best driver of the golf ball, not named Rory on the planet. Keith and I have talked about this before, and he's like, I think Rory would drive it better if he did just play a fade. And that's while saying he's already the best driver of the golf ball on the planet year in, year out. So it's like, just because you're the best doesn't mean you couldn't get even better by doing one thing. So a guy like Rory, mini driver or 3 wood to draw, driver to fade, I think he would be even better than he is.
Much more consistent anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, anyway, circling back here to Bethpage, too, is a guy like Bryson that draws it might get away with trying to draw it down here if he can get a good line. The further we are, even though he's going to be in the rough, he's going to be in the rough at 50 yards. I mean,
Not much advantage. Yeah.
yeah. So I would be looking for that. Par threes here. This is, a good par three for a right-handed player. The green sits long left to short right. So a right-handed player's shot pattern has a little bit of a natural tilt that way. It's why number 12 at Augusta that sits the other direction, short left to long right. That's
Hmm.
why right-handed players struggle with it so much because their misses wind up in the bunker long left to the back right pin, and their misses right wind up shortening the water. Whereas a guy like Mickelson, with the exact same target, his shot pattern instead of sitting this way, sits this way.
Gotcha.
So it fits that green better. The Masters has been won disproportionately by left-handed players
Lefties. Yeah.
more than any other event on tour. And
Yeah. I didn't know. I knew it was strong. I didn't know it was that much. Wow.
that's because there's only number 18 is the only hole that working it from left to right off the tee is imperative. Every other hole right to left. So now a lefties fade 2, 10, 13. These holes all fit this left-handed fade better.
Hmm.
Then the approach shot on 13, 12. There's approach shots that also fit a lefty. So we've got Bob Charles, Mike Weir, Bubba Watson, Mickelson. Like a lot of lefties have won that golf tournament. And it really is because of the design of the golf course.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Here's another hole, 517 yards. This is 67 yards wide at 300. Again, this is going to fit a guy like Bryson's shot pattern. I don't think we've got a lefty in the field. Is Brian Harmon in the field? I don't even know.
I don't think he was picked.
I
No.
haven't paid much attention to
No.
it. This is going to fit a draw off the tee, so I would look for the guys potentially that have the mini driver or 3-wood setup. Again, perfect looking hole here for our fade, 478. This is 62 yards wide at 300. No reason to drop back. Yes, the fairway might be a little bit wider here. It looks like it, but if you actually look at the way the shot
It
pattern's coming
opens up.
in,
Yeah.
it's the same width. So great spot for everyone not named Bryson. This is going to be an awkward tee shot for Bryson again.
Is that so? Just on that point where fairways are widening, let's go back to our golfers, right? They're playing on their home course or whatever, and it might be they think it's a narrow hole, so they might play safer off the tee or whatever. I think a lot of people totally ignore where things might start to open up and be like, actually, a driver is the better play because there's even with my dispersion, I've got more room, in fact, but I'm going to be closer to the hole, which is always going to have, well, not always, but generally going to be an advantage, right?
The main mathematical mistake people make in course management is thinking I'd rather be here than there. So I'd rather be in the fairway at 160 than the rough at 120. And while that may or may not even be accurate in the first place, we need to consider the entire range of all of the shots from each target. So just because I hit driver off the tee doesn't mean I'm going to be in the rough. I'm going to accidentally hit the fairway some. And just because I drop back to 3-wood or even worse, long iron, does not mean that I'm going to be in the fairway every time. You don't get to just place the ball in the fairway just because you hit iron off the tee.
What process should a golfer kind of quickly do when they're on a hole to make a sort of decision based on that? Like, how can they look at it and make a quick decision that's going to be sensible?
That's a tough question to answer succinctly, just because there's
so many variables, I guess.
So many variables.
Yeah.
Like if you were playing tennis and you asked me about a situation, be like, well, I know what the court looks like, or football, or soccer, like every other sport. Golf is the only sport that doesn't have a uniform field of competition. But even number 5 here at Bethpage, one day it might be into the wind and one day it might be downwind. Like, so that's a more complex.
So really it's about learning the tenets, the principles to apply, the sort of checklist, if you will, to sort of assess the situation and then make a decision based on that. And that never changes, right?
That is exactly correct. And this is again where I feel salesy and it makes me feel gross, but that's the whole point of Decade. The reason I called it Decade is, first of all, Zalator sent me a text that just said, thank you. You've given me 25 years of experience in 5 days. The point of Decade is we're going to take decades off your learning curve. I subscribe to the philosophy of I'd rather teach a man to fish than give him a fish.
I'm always been that way.
Yeah. So I need you to understand these tenets and principles and then be able to apply them to your own game. And more importantly, the day. I mean, because the decision can change every single day, what you're doing technically.
Yeah. And it's having those key quick checklist that never alters and doesn't consume the time and brain power, because there's a lot going on when you're playing golf. You can't remember it all, especially when you're thinking about work, your family, like all sorts of things. You've hit crap shots and you're worried about just making a decent contact for the most part for a lot of people, right?
And when you're in the 18th fairway trying to break 90 or 80 or 70 for the first time, or you're trying to win the club championship A flight or D flight, your brain is going faster. You're a little nervous. And so really like owning these ideas and principles is what's going to allow you to make clear, emotionless decisions when you're trying to do something that for you is special in the game of golf. The best analogy I've come up with is the way golf is taught, unfortunately, and this isn't a knock on instructors, it's just the way the game is, we learn how to hit a ball on a flat driving range with perfect lies. And then it's like, well, good luck now, go play good golf. It would be very similar, in my opinion, to getting a tennis lesson in a parking lot where we're just working on your forehand and working on your serve, and then you show up to play a game and there's service lines and boxes.
Oh my God, that is such a terrific analogy. Yeah, that is really good.
Like, you didn't tell me about this. Well,
yeah,
I didn't think to. We're just working on your forehand, man. It's just.
And there's a guy running around in different places. He's not staying still.
And he's not hitting it right here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great analogy.
It's a very, very weird game, unfortunately. Here we've got a spot where we've got a narrow-ish green. We've got 408 yards. Obviously, I'm just going to read this, 60 at 260. Many players ask me about this hole specifically, which tells me it's likely a tough one at only 408. So this was one that at first I was like, man, we may want to lay back on it. But then actually, when you just talk about shipping it up there, dude, just send it down there and figure it out after your tee shot. If this stuff on the right and on the left is unplayable, so we got a big problem here. Then we would want to come back to this zone. The fairway bunkers at Bethpage, the lips aren't very bad. And so dropping back to we're only going to have 140 or 50 into the green, completely acceptable. But it's a funky little landing area. But
what would you do? What would you do there if you were hitting it well?
It would
Like if
depend
you're
on
feeling fairly confident, would you go with the driver up there?
if I'm going to find the ball in this rough, again, not the rough, but the what look like native areas. If I'm going to find the ball and be able to advance it, I'm probably going to play this aggressively. I mean, the nutshell of tee shot strategy is you should feel like you're playing pretty wheels off aggressive off the tee. We want to avoid penalty shots. So a lost ball here is obviously a penalty shot, but for the most part, if a penalty shot's not in play, I'm hitting driver. I mean, I don't care how tree lined it is, how many fairway bunkers are out there, for the most part, generically. But I even hate saying anything like that because, again, there's just not great generic advice in golf. But again, specifically back to this hole, for the guys that fade it, dropping back to that mini driver, this hole plays downhill a decent amount. So carrying it 260 is not a big challenge for the guys in this field. So drawing something out there to fit, if the course is playing fast, we really want the shape of your shot fitting the fairway. So this is fairway is fit for a draw. We really want the shape of the shot fitting the fairway because otherwise the fade's just pretty much going to land and run through almost every single time. 7, same thing here. This could be a 3-wood depending on the speed of the fairway and your preferred shape with driver. Just in case we've got another tee box way back here. Well, this is actually the hole's longer, but it's significantly easier because of where the fairway lines up. So playing it back here is a much
that's
more
an interesting example of how your dispersion can. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So again, but it's 524 yards long. We want to be getting this thing up as close as possible, but also just because of the shape of the hole, it's not a 90-degree dog leg, but it's pretty darn close to it from that back right tee. 8, again, par 3, nothing interesting whatsoever here. This will all be a shaved bank, running balls back down into the water. PGA Tour players.
When you have a situation like that where there's trouble at the front, but there's still trouble at the back, or the greens, if you go long, the green's running away from you to water, let's say, what advice would you have for someone that might not quite know where it's going to go? Obviously, long is better than water, but
that was it. That's your answer.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it. You can stop right now and save me some words. Long is better than water. Okay. Everyone, tour players, I literally talk about this all the time. Tour players suck to front hole locations. We all play for this perfect shot. So if I'm trying to hit a shot 160, I'm very rarely going to accidentally hit it 167, but I will hit it 153, even 145 a lot. We don't miss long. And to your point of what you just said there, if we go long, we're going to be coming back down the hill on average. That's true, but that's why we need to work on our lag putting and lag chipping well. So we're good at that. So we don't putt it off the green and into the water, obviously. But on average, I would much rather be long than short, especially to front hole locations. But even to back hole locations, if it's a super fast putt, our eyes triangulate. That's how we have like depth perception. And so if I'm on a 15-footer, perceptually, it's not that big of a difference. So my eyes don't really calculate that well, like, ooh, this is way downhill. And so we wind up taking the same length stroke that we would on a flat 15-footer and then just decelerating into it. As opposed to if I look at the hole, obviously as I'm getting oriented to the shot, but then my last look is to like 7 feet. I putt aggressively to 7 feet and then just let the ball trundle out to 15.
So I don't know whether you'll approve of this, but something I share with many people, it's not an exact science, and it generally is more focused on something over 20 feet, 25 feet. But uphill versus downhill, I always suggest people to do a practice stroke. Let's say you're going uphill and you've got a 30-foot putt. I would say go to like 25 feet away or something like that and just sort of feel the distance there. So you the other way around. So if that was downhill, so you're a bit closer. If you're uphill, you're going to go to 35 feet and you calibrate.
Actually, really good idea.
You just calibrate your distance, and that's the putt. Then you just walk into it. Then you kind of almost ignore the hole and just try and replicate that feel.
That's
So I found that,
basically the exact same thing I
yeah,
said, except for you're doing it by moving yourself instead of moving the fake hole. You're
yeah,
basically doing the exact same thing. So yeah,
it
I
is
love
really,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I may try that because that's actually a really good idea. I'm trying to ditch practice strokes, but that's
I've tried that and I've suggested that on longer putts. It definitely seemed to help somewhat because it just made it more instinctual on the long putts anyway.
Max Grazerman was second in strokes gained putting the year before last on tour. I actually
Oh
don't know how
wow.
he was last year, but he's got great speed control. And asked him what he does. And he says that he really tries to visualize not just the exact line of the putt, but the actual speed the ball should be rolling on it. And we're
Mm,
very good at replicating. So, like, I kind of, I mean, again, I'm 52. I've been playing golf my whole life. I'm pretty good at like being able to see that. Like, okay, this is really fast. So, starting at 6 feet, it just needs to be tumbling, and then I back it up to 12 feet. What speed does it need to have there to get to that speed? And just kind of keep backing it up to where then I see the entire putt at the actual speed the ball should be rolling.
interesting.
Yeah, and again, I putted at Champions Tour final stage last year. I putted really well on greens that were significantly faster than I've been putting for a long time. It's honestly probably the only reason I'm not freaking out heading into this golf tournament this
Okay. Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm like, it was kind of the same situation last year, and I was able to adapt really well, really quickly. So
Good.
I'm going to focus on that again in my practice rounds.
Excellent.
Here we go at 967 at 300. A lot of these guys can carry it 300 yards, in which case they should just be hitting driver, obviously. But if they can't, I mean, it looks like I'm just going to guesstimate this bunker starts at 270. Their three wood still can get to the bunker, most
Yeah.
likely. Well, but I can't carry the bunker. Well, the bunker's just in play. I would. This bunker for me is
Got a high
large.
lip. Has he got a high lip?
And
That
probably
one?
not. Bethpage, the lips are just pretty docile for the most part. Probably not, but that's what I would be looking. But honestly, I was just talking with one of the best college golf coaches in the country right before we got on, and what he said specifically was like, I feel like we're overvaluing the difficulty of fairway bunkers, and I'm like, are you just always thinking you're going to be in the lip? And he's like, pretty much. You're just
Yeah.
in the lip very rarely. Yes, we're going to be in there, but for the most part, on average, you're not. Now the fairway bunkers with lips that start at, let's say 180 and longer for tour players, well, they become more of a problem because more of the bunker the lip impacts because I've got a longer
Yeah.
iron in my hand. But the only alternative is dropping back at least 30 yards from driver to your three wood or mini driver. And the rough from 30 yards further back plays harder even still than that fairway bunker. Because now we're
Yeah.
210 in the rough. That's a terrible idea. One thing that I'll say is the main question you really should be focusing on in tee shot strategy is what's the alternative and what does it accomplish? Well, here we've got a 502-yard hole. It starts to pinch in a little bit here on this side, just past 300, but not enough that I would want to drop back 30 or 40 yards. Again, the hole's 502. I want to be hitting it as far up there as I possibly can. And then, hopefully we hit the fairway, but if not, I'd rather be in this fairway bunker than the rough. I'll hit the fairway maybe 10-ish% more of the time on this little of a pinch in, but I'm a shorter 30 or 40 yards shorter 100% of the time. So I'm giving up 10% of the fairways for 100% of my shots being further. That's a
Wow.
bad
Okay.
trade.
Interesting. And
Very
so
bad trade.
let's say the players go to they end up play longer. They're in the fairway bunker on this hole because it seems to be like unless they get a very good lie and open, they're probably just going to lay up. I would think, looking at the trouble in the front there.
Pretty much.
Right.
I mean, definitely
Yeah.
from the fairway bunker, you've got your best opportunity of being able to go for the green. Then, if the rough is bad at all, because like you say, it starts right here. That I'm just guesstimating here. That's 60 yards.
Yeah.
We're certainly not going to just lay it up into the rough. And if there's just a lot of times where, man, I'm in the rough, I just can't carry it that far. I mean, it's just literally not possible. And so it's just a guaranteed. It's not a one shot penalty, but it's almost like hitting it in a water hazard. I'm just advancing it up the fairway 60 yards.
Yeah.
And obviously, I expect the rough to be pretty bad at this place. I don't know how the U.S. decided to set it up because they control that, but that's actually an interesting point. They may have set it up with less rough and try to bomb it around there. So again, right here, what I said is 67 at 300. 55 at 270. You can consider the 270 shot in this area, but a lot of that is because the hole's 435. So I'm not as offended by it, but for the most part, I'm just not going to drop back just because of this much of a pinch. It would be focusing on this rough right here. I mean, that this is really the biggest concern right here because you can see that this is the rye And then this is the what could be native area. Same thing, setting up well for Bryson here, but this is also depending on how fast it's playing. If fade is again, is it going to run out? It looks like this is going to be 280-ish to cover the bunkers. A lot of those guys, that's going to be right on the cusp of their 3-wood or mini driver, the longer hitters. It's one of those deals. It's interesting because if you can carry your driver 280, then this is perfect. If you can't carry your driver 280, if you carry your driver 300, then you probably carry your 3-wood or mini driver roughly 275 or 80. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it kind of, the way golf works out is like if, regardless if you're long or short, if this one club won't do something, then the other club probably does what you need it to do and vice versa. Here again, 67 at 300, nothing interesting, just driver all day. It's a 3-shot hole. I'm going to lay it back of these bunkers. I would rather get it further up and in these bunkers because now I'm only 300 yards. I only need to move it, to 130 or 40. I don't need to move it that far, but moving it that far from a bad lie in the rough can be a very, very big problem. So This is someplace that I wouldn't even consider those. Nothing too interesting here. Short par 3. I don't really remember. I assume this green is pretty wonky because it looks big.
It looks huge. Obviously shorter front left and back right.
Yeah, it looks like all kinds of crazy stuff is probably going on that green. Interesting hole here. It just sets up perfectly for just a nice tight draw, 457 yards. I would definitely not be surprised to see the longer right-handed male players dropping back to 3-wood here if it's playing fast to shape the shot to the hole. It's not that big of a dog leg, but if it's playing fast, it's enough of one that shape is going to be important. And if we're running our driver and mini driver out to 300, there's just no reason to try to get it past this area.
Okay, so before we skip forward, that's a raised green and everything there, right? So let's say someone, the hole's 450. Well, okay, let's say someone's got 180 in, but they're in the rough. That's a raised green up there. There's kind of a lot of, obviously got bunkers. There's a bit of rough before the fairway starts. Like what lie depending, but they're probably not going to be able to smash an 8-iron, fly it high, or a 7-iron, get it high. What should they do in that situation when they're gambling a bit of relying on a good shot and good contact to even turn out pretty well? Do they really take their medicine, or what would your advice if you were caddying for them?
This is similar to like par 5 strategy. If it's truly conceivable you can ever get the ball putting, it's kind of a decent indication that the majority of your shot pattern is going to be in pretty good shape somewhere around the green. So I would want you playing more aggressive in that scenario. On average, if you're my US Mid-Am qualifier, I hit a bad tee shot out to the right on number 8, and I was in this St. Augustine, which is, I don't know if you guys have that overseas, but it's like a really thick, it's not supposed to be on a golf course. It was right next, I was almost in somebody's backyard by about a foot.
Oh, okay.
So it's just this gross rough that the ball was sitting perfectly down in. And as I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's no way this 8-iron is going to come out of this well. But I didn't have the patience to be like, I'm just going to take sand wedge, pitch it up the fairway, try to salvage par, but make bogey at worst. It's a one-day qualifier. I was 1 or 2 under at the time. Didn't want to give one back. Well, what I do and don't want to do has no bearing on this decision. And so I didn't play patient golf, and I tried to hack an 8-iron out of it, and the heel caught. I wound up in the left rough, almost in a hazard now. Kind of got lucky to wind up salvaging bogey from that point. Mm-hmm. And so I know this is not going to work out. Sometimes you just got to listen to your brain and just take your medicine. And I didn't, and I got away with it, but I darn sure was close to not. So you got to be able to be.
Why didn't you take the medicine? Why didn't you take your own advice in that situation?
Well, because it was a weird grass. I just wasn't quite sure how it would come out. I wasn't quite sure if
there was a hunch basically that I still might execute this just fine. It might come out fine.
Ish. I mean, again, I'm probably giving myself more of the benefit of the doubt here than I deserve. It was probably just stupid. I mean, at the end of the day,
we're golfers. We have to be stupid sometimes.
Here we've got from the left edge of this bunker over to the right edge of the native area, 67 yards. From native area to native area, 67 yards. Native area to native area, 65 yards. You see these numbers so consistently. I mean, obviously it's not that way every time. 67 at 300 from junk to junk. I mean, you see these numbers so often that you just want to start practicing on your driving range. You want to find an area that's about 70 yards wide. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I know what that is at my home course, my driving range. My only goal in driver practice is keeping it between these two tall trees. If I do
That's
that,
it.
I know the fairway is going to get in the way of some shots. So let's pretend that this fairway right here, instead of being right down the middle, it perfectly hugged this right side. So the fairway started here and ended like right here. I would basically be aiming at the left rough line then, because all I'm trying to do in that scenario is keep it between the native areas.
I see.
And you'll see this more with like a water hazard.
It's sort of irrelevant where the fairway is
It's
in a way.
completely irrelevant where the fairway is. And you'll see this on
That's
holes
huge.
with
That's
water
huge.
hazards. Let's say this is a water hazard, like a Pete Dye course, and the fairway runs right up to it, and then the fairway runs right along here. I would be aiming 35 yards, aim just meaning centering my shot pattern 35 yards away from that water, and then just hitting driver. And if that means I'm aiming at a bunker or whatever, so be it. It is what it is.
So, okay, what if there was out of bounds on the left, all the
If
way
they were
down the left?
65 or 70 yards, I would still just be hitting driver and I would be doing the same thing. So what we want to be looking for is roughly 65 or 70 yards between penalty hazards. And pretty much if there's that, I personally am going to be hitting driver the vast majority of the time. 17 here, again, interesting par 3, tilts short right to long left. So this fits a right-handed shot patterns very well. So if the pin is in the back left, we would still be picking our solid decade target, and my shot pattern would be fitting it much better than if the green tilted the other way. Again, number 12 at Augusta tilts the other way, so that back right pin really doesn't set up very well at all for me. This is a pretty, even if the pin's in the front right, I'm going to aim a little bit long and left of it, and my pulls are going to be fine. And again, at 207, that's definitely going to be the way a shot pattern tilts for longer irons. The longer the iron, the more the tilt. The shorter the iron, just because you don't hook and fade short irons, the less of the tilt. It starts to become more of an oval. And then once you get into your wedges, it actually becomes pretty compressed directionally. We have better directional control over our sand wedge than distance control for the most part.
So it's very important, no matter the level, right? We have the benefit of data, launch monitors, all this kind of stuff. Even for a 20 odd handicap or whatever it might be, it's always going to be beneficial to know your shot pattern with each club, correct?
Yeah.
So
we want to start thinking like in a 3D view from a satellite as to how does my shot pattern fit on that green, as opposed to here's my target and not really caring about what's going on left and right. I mean, that's where stuff's hard, man. Jordan Spieth back in 2015, 16, whenever it was, he won the Masters in 2015, 16. Was that when he made the 9?
Yeah, I think
7
15
on 12.
maybe.
It was just funny because he sat there and he said after, he's like, I honestly don't know what happened. I was just over that ball and everything felt so good. My target was right over the middle of the bunker and everything felt so good. I thought I would just push it over there to the flag. At least when Francisco Molinari hit it in the water, he took the right club and aimed directly at it. That shot had a chance.
Yeah.
And again, these are the things that decade and data and understanding these ideas has really cleaned up.
So with the decade, you can learn your shot pattern based on the course.
Again, that's not really the point. The point is more to understand these ideas in more detail and then learn how you put those onto the course. Trying to actually figure out your shot pattern with any club other than driver is really difficult to do, because we're sitting indoors, we're hitting on a launch monitor, I'm making contact with a different groove because I'm hitting off of a mat, I'm hitting the same shot 30 times in a row. Like, it's just not really
It's
how
not
it works.
golf. That's not golf.
You know, when I get in my simulator, I'm like, man, I hit my 6-iron far. It's like, well, I'm catching it 2 grooves higher than I normally do, so it's coming off with 1,200 RPM less spin. I'm hitting a knuckleball in here, so sure, it goes 8 yards further. It's just not how it actually works in reality. And so simulators are great. They're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And so you just have to understand the limitations.
What's your advice to a regular golfer? Because they'll say, oh, I hit my 7-iron 165 or something. But in reality, they're probably doing that 1 out of 10.
I basically want you to hit 50 shots, whatever, 30 shots, and discount your shortest 20-ish percent, 15 to 20%, just completely throw those away and then average the rest. And that's how far you hit that club. So for me, if I do that exercise, I'm probably like my overall average with my 8-iron, if I hit 10 sand wedges, and I've got this really weird quirk in my swing where every 10th shot I whiff it. And every other shot is 100 yards perfectly. My average would be 90 yards. I don't want to play for 90 yards because 90% of the time I hit it 100.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while I whiff it.
Yeah.
You can't let
the outliers. Yeah.
You can't let outliers destroy the average. And that's what too many people do. So I want to discount those shortest ones and then figure out. But again, for me, if I hit an 8 iron perfectly, it's like 157. Odds are that, like, by definition, I'm going to do that 20-ish% of the time. But if I hit it, and this is what's hard, is if I'm 153, which is what my 8 iron on average kind of goes.
So when you're on the course, you're using your yardage, how far? It's like, oh, I've got 155. You're gonna be like, okay, that's pretty damn close to my 8 iron.
And I'm
Right?
just going to hit it full. And it sucks when I hit it perfectly because it's going to go 10, 12 feet long.
Yeah.
I knew I should have taken a couple off. Like, well, no, you just happen to hit it perfect. That's unfortunate. But if you do that every time, like, that's not going to work out.
Yes. Okay. Interesting.
And the interesting thing here on the last hole at Bethpage is Brooks, when he won, he went to 18 with a 2-shot lead. I can't remember if he birdied 17 or somebody bogeyed 17. But Faldo said, well, it'll be interesting to see what he does here on 18 with a 2-shot lead. Will he play smart and drop back to a 2 iron, or will he just continue bashing driver? Well, just by dropping back to 2 iron does not guarantee I hit the fairway. It still is a narrow fairway. The lips of the bunkers aren't bad, so getting it up in these bunkers isn't the end of the world. And yeah, stand up there and send driver, because I'm going to hit it, in Brooks's case, 330. I'm obviously driving it well. I'm about to win the PGA. If I drop back to 2 iron, the only thing I've insured is having 170 left. And 170.
And even if he does end up in the bunker, he can get it on, no problem. If he gets a crappy lie, he just lays up short. If he hits it in the rough, he still might be able to get it on. If he's got a crappy lie in the rough, he can lay up short. It's
and
clear.
This is where there's too much confirmation bias in golf, because if he'd hit it in the bunker, wound up in the lip, everyone would be like, you should have dropped back. You don't know what would have happened there. The analogy I love using is, if in blackjack, if you're on 18 and you hit, there's a 23% chance you won't bust and the table's going to go crazy. Oh my God, you're insane. You didn't bust. There's still a 30% chance you won't win the hand.
Oh, wow.
So even if you hit on 18, don't bust, there's still a really good chance you don't win the hand.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's like, man, you just got to make the correct mathematical decisions over and over and over again, and just let the odds turn out what they are.
And that's what the decade is all about. It's like, you might think certain things, but the evidence and data tells us exactly what we need to do to shoot better scores. You might not like it all the time, but that's what it is, right?
That is exactly correct.
So let me ask about the Ryder Cup first. Have you any hunch of which team players are going to do well?
I don't even know who's on it. I have no hunch who's going to win or anything. I think it would shock most people how little professional golf I actually watch. To
be honest, I'm exactly the same. All I know is everyone I know, golfers, watches so much more professional golf than I do.
Yeah, I don't watch any. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I think that it's overblown that the Euros have beat the Americans so much in the last however many years.
It's such a fine line as well. It's a joke.
But historically, the Europeans didn't come over, and America was just better. And I totally discount before they expanded it to all of Europe, because that's just stupid.
Yeah.
But since then,
when we had like a pool of 20 people.
Yeah, I mean, since then though, sure, you guys have won more, I think, is the story. But in my view of it, a lot of Europeans play in America a lot, so they understand the American style of golf.
Yeah.
Not many Americans play in Europe and understand that style of golf, whereas
it's much more of a home advantage to Europeans when we're at home.
Much more of a home advantage.
I mean, pretty much all the players, I think, play on the PGA Tour. So it's like they are used to it, but that's
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I like watching the majors if and when I've got a player in the hunt ish. And I enjoy watching the Ryder Cup, maybe the last 9 holes. There's no chance I watch a single golf. Well, I'm going to be playing in the US Mid-Am, so there's definitely no chance. But aside from that, I mean, there's just no chance I watch any of it, actually.
All right. Well, so if someone wants to learn more about Decade, where should they go?
Just go to decade.golf at this point. You'll see a bunch of testimonials from guys like Zalatoris and Bryson, and even older guys like Stuart Sink and Keith Mitchell. It really is, I hate saying it, but it is a really cool app for teaching you how to play the game, air quotes, correctly. I really, it's been an accident that I created it to some extent. And at this point, as a 52-year-old former playing professional, it really is just It's just a diary of all the dumb stuff I've done and witnessed over 52 years, so you don't have to make the same mistakes. Again, the point of
Decade is a
decade.
lot of hindsight, right?
Oh,
Packaged, hindsight packaged, I
don't
guess.
do this, man. Don't do that. Here's how this works. Again, the idea of lag putting very well from 20 to 40 feet, like that's such a skill that is underrated. To be able to know I can just get it down in two every single time. The idea of even from 16 to 20 feet, being comfortable leaving putts short. I don't want a 5 foot comebacker from 18 feet. I'd rather be 1 foot short. You're
Yeah,
going to miss 5 footers coming back. Even the best putter that's ever walked the planet, Brad Faxon, left 1 in 6, 16% of his putts short from 16 to 20 feet.
that's
Yeah.
wild. Yeah. We should, more golfers need to take a leaf out of that book. Never up, never in is not good.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, thank
Perfect.
you. Thank you
Thanks for
for
your
this,
time.
Scott. It's going to be interesting to see what people do at Bethpage. And obviously, I'll be cheering for the Europeans. But yeah, this has been great.
Awesome.
So, thank you
Thank
ever so
you.
much.